Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited you're here with me today to review the Personal Brand Masterclass. I'm Lisa Hufford, and I taught this content to thousands of professionals just like you. We're really wanting to understand what it is that of how you want to represent your brand out to the world to really do the work that you love. So today we're going to walk through why you need a personal brand, what is it, and some 5 questions to help you uncover your unique personal brand. So let's get started. Why do I need a personal brand? Perception is reality. In our world that we live in, people are always making assumptions about who we are and judgments about the work that we've done. And so it's really important that each of us has the specific words, very intentional words that we want to use to project to other people we meet of what the work is and who we really are, because it's likely then that those people are going to take those words and say them about us. So why do you need a personal brand? Well, you have one whether you realize it or not. So let's really get intentional about representing yourself and the work that you want to do. So what is a brand? And what can we learn from great brands? When you think about brands out there in the world, think about what attracts you to them. I'll use Nordstrom as a great example. Nordstrom, everyone knows, stands for customer service. They made a very deliberate choice when they set the brand vision as a company to stand for customer service. And that's through everything, how they train their people, their generous return policy. So when you think about yourself and what we can learn from great brands like Nordstrom, it's really about understanding what it is that I want to stand for. What is it that you want to stand for that's really unique and that really will set you apart from everyone else out there? So the definition of a personal brand, and we're going to get into this, is really the balance of your strength and your passion. This is about the strengths, about the work that's really easy for you, what's effortless. The passion is the work that you love. What is it that really lights you up right now? It may not be forever, but right now. And when you can combine those things of what it is that's really easy for you to do and what you really like to do, and then think about how you can represent that out to the world, that attracts more of the work that you want to do and ultimately will increase your happiness and satisfaction at work. So we're going to get into the 5 questions right now. So go ahead and get out a pen and paper and we can walk through them. As Oscar Wilde says, be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. The benefit of the personal brand exercises is whatever the words are for you are right. So it's really about your own personal adventure. The first question is about your awareness, being aware. And the question here I'd like you to consider is, who do you admire and why? And if whoever you admire and the attributes of who you admire are usually a reflection of the words that you might want to be able to say about yourself. So thinking about other people, we're typically attracted to people that we want to be like. So take some time to really reflect on someone you admire and why is it that you admire them, and write down some of those attributes, which could give you a clue as to the words that you want to use to represent yourself. The second question is about being unique. This is about tapping into your natural greatness. What is effortless for you to do? What is so easy for you to do that you often overlook it? And you've probably been doing it your whole life. You probably had feedback from your colleagues and your managers that you're just naturally good at whatever that is, whether it's project management or writing, or maybe it's finance or Excel sheets, or maybe you're really good at managing customer relationships, things that are so natural to you. Oftentimes we overlook those as our unique gifts. And those, I really want to take some time to really think about that as part of your unique value proposition. The third question, this is a really powerful question, is around developing your confidence. And everyone I teach this workshop, we spend a lot of time on this question because confidence is really kind of the heart of owning your personal brand. So describe a memorable professional success story. And this is a time where you really felt like you were on top of the world. Maybe you achieved something really significant. you're part of a group that accomplished something. Maybe you got a recognition or an award, or you just had that sense of satisfaction of a really great job well done. I want you to take some time to really write out what it is. What was that moment? What was that experience? And if you can create actually 3 stories that kind of, it sets you up to have 3 examples, and this is what I call your evidence of really building your personal brand, because it's in those moments where you've had success before where you can have success again. So this is a very powerful exercise, because when you can really tap into where you've been successful, that helps you sit a little taller, be more confident. And when you're talking to prospective clients, you can really lean forward with sharing in a very succinct way the work you've done, the results you've achieved, and how you can translate that to doing it for them. So take some time on this exercise after the session's over. Being teachable is about building your skills. You know, we're never done. We're always learning. Things are always changing. So whatever it is that you are really focused on and that you really want to differentiate yourself in the marketplace, what are you doing to continue to build those skills? Are you seeking coaches, mentors, conferences, podcasts, books, whatever it is? There's so many different ways to learn, but making sure you're very intentional about continuing to build your skills to really be that expert in your area of expertise. And then last but not least, being kind to ourselves, because when you're building your personal brand, this can feel a little vulnerable. You're really putting yourself out there. You're putting out to the world what it is you love to do, what it is you're really good at. Oftentimes I have people say things to me like, I kind of feel like I'm bragging about myself if I'm sharing these things. And you're not bragging, you're just sharing the evidence about the successes you've had. There's a big difference between bragging and really showcasing the work you've done, the results you've delivered, and how you can do that again. And that's really what clients want you to do. So when I think about this, being kind to yourself is recognizing that for many of us, that inner critic might pop up, and it might say things like, oh gosh, you're bragging about yourself again, or who are you to think you can do this kind of work or have this kind of life, or that's not even possible what you're thinking. Just recognizing that might happen for you, and just to, just acknowledge it. And you don't have to listen to it. Just keep leaning into where it is that you really want to do and the work that you want to do, and go back to those success stories, reminding yourself, yes, I've done this before, you can do it again, and just continue to be kind to yourself. This is really about believing in yourself and recognizing what you can offer and your unique gifts that you can offer to the world. And you have to believe it first before anyone else is going to believe it. So this is a big part of this personal brand work of really strengthening that confidence and credibility within yourself to go out there and get the work that you really want. So bringing all these 5 steps together builds your personal brand statement. And this is a really fluid statement. It's composed of your what and your why. Your what tends to be what you do. It's your title. Many people will say, like, I'm a project manager, I'm a marketing communications professional. But really, it's your why. I think of why people want to know what motivates you. Why do you do the work that you do? What do you really love about it? So I really spent some time on your why. It was about helping people be successful. It's about making a big impact. Is about making a big contribution to the world. Whatever it is that you just feel in your gut, you're like, this is why I do the work that I do to generate this kind of a result. And whatever it is the right answer, and really own that. That's so powerful. Your why is kind of your own personal motivation of really what people feel, your energy. When people feel your core, your why and your energy, that's typically what's really going to attract them to you. So thank you so much. That was a very high level overview of building your personal brand. There are some amazing resources. If this is something that you want to expand more on, learn more about, there's so much great information out there. But I really hope that some of these tips help you build your confidence and credibility to go do the work that you love. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. We're back. Can you hear me okay? Make sure we're on. Okay, good. Okay, so let's get into it. So we here have about 45 minutes left. And I would love to answer any questions that you all have. And in particular, if you have a personal brand statement or you're just stuck, are you stuck on any one of those specific questions or you're not sure how to think about it? This is the time to raise your hand, unmute yourself. Let's have a conversation and let's really get you some answers and get you moving towards clarifying your personal brand. So who would like to start? Okay, that's okay. You guys are a little shy.
I
Who is
will.
that? Karen.
Hi.
Hi, is that Karen?
Yes, let me put my video on.
Okay,
Hi.
great. Hi, Karen. Nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you for doing this workshop.
Yeah.
I am stuck on my personal brand statement.
Mhm.
I've thought a lot about it, but I want your sorry. Okay. So I want your opinion. I'm a writer. I'm working with the Microsoft team. I've been a writer in high tech for a long time, but I've written a lot of other things too. I mean, nothing dramatically great. I mean, nothing, but I'm versatile. But the statement I came up with is a writer who is helping tell technology's unfolding story. So because I write about so many different technology related things, that doesn't have a clear benefit for potential clients, but I think it's a big umbrella statement that I feel good about. So I just wanted your feedback on that.
Yeah, I think that's a great statement. You're a writer that tells technology's unfolding stories. And so when you think about your statement, what I love about it is listening to you say it felt very authentic to who you are. And I was looking to see what you felt about it when you said, I like it, but there was a little bit of hesitation. And what I heard you say, and it's a great question of, do I need to add a benefit statement? Right.
Right.
And so let's talk about that, because you could,
Okay.
or you could think about your personal brand statement. What I really love about it is it's short, it's concise. It felt very authentic the way you said it. And then it's kind of could be almost like your top level, right? And when you have like when I think about like LinkedIn, you have like your headline at the top, like your name and I could see that almost on your headline. And really what you want your personal brand statement to do is generate interest to ask, well, tell me about that. And so when you said that, right, I'm a writer that's telling technology's unfolding story, I actually was like leaning in, and now I want to ask, right? Like, well, what are those unfolding stories, right? So so you could think about that as your personal brand statement at the top. Now you get into your stories where the benefits could live, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about that. Like when you think about, and this kind of gets into the idea of having these authentic words or stories. So if you have, do you have a story in mind of how, like if someone said, well, tell me like one of your projects or a job you've had where you've told an unfolding story. Yeah, tell me about that.
So I'm on the same team, the SEO content studio that a lot of my peers are on this call. And so, I write, they're not necessarily stories per se, but I'm contributing to helping people, tech and business people, understand what's happening with technology.
It's actually, it's not as complicated, I think, as some people think it has to be. And it should feel authentic to you. It should feel like your words, and it should just be a clear representation really of like, who you are and the work you do. And the one thing I will say, I love that you shared this, Karen, of kind of, I'm just a writer like everyone else, right?
Well,
and
yeah, it is natural to me.
Exactly, right? And you're not alone. I hear this all the time. I'm just going to say it's mostly women over the years who are like, I've actually heard exactly that comment of, I've always been a good writer. I'm always a good project manager. Isn't everybody else? And so I'm going to, share this with you and everyone, like, no, actually, not everyone's a good writer. That is your unique gift and talent. And it feels probably really easy for you because it comes so naturally. And
Okay.
so, just celebrate that and recognize that you're doing what you love and it's really easy for you. And for other people, it's not. They got other gifts and talents, right? But writing may not be one of them. So just recognize that, you are unique. And there are a lot of writers in the world, just like there's lots of everything, lots of project managers, lots of communications professionals, lots of whatever, because the world needs a lot of that skill. But what makes you unique is you, Karen, right? You as an individual and a person, just like every single one of us. And so, just be mindful of like, oh, I'm just like everybody else. You're not like everybody else. You're Karen. You have your unique gifts and talents, right? And the work you do is really important. I would venture to say your clients would probably say that about you because of the way you help, unfold the story and focus on accuracy and make sure it's interesting. Like those are really valuable skills.
Thank you. Thanks for your time. That's really helpful.
Is that helpful? Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you for being the first one and volunteering. All right, great. And I'm curious, what from everyone listening to that, what did you hear? What I love it when people share their personal brand statement in the beginning. For those of you that before we got shut off, when Karen talked about, I'm a writer telling a technology's unfolding story. Did I get that right, Karen? Was that your right? When you heard Karen say that, did you notice that kind of the authenticity in that, and did it make you lean in and want to hear more? And if anyone else has a comment for Karen.
I already put this. Hi, it's Nicole. I already put this in the post. Hi. In the chat, don't say just a writer, Karen, because like you already touched on this, Lisa, not everybody can do what you do. Not everybody can write. So, I mean, I that's one place where I find value. I mean, you write something and send it to somebody and they're like, oh my God, you made this so much better. And that's why you're here. I mean, that's why you're employed, because other people do other things well, and this is what we can do. So don't say just. And I'm from the newspaper business, and people will call and say, well, I'm just a reader. It's like, no, you're not. You're actually the reason I do this and my paycheck, basically. So the reason, that you're doing this is because you're good at it. So that's my little pep talk for the day. Thanks. I'll talk out now.
Thank you, Nicole. We all need to be reminded of that, right? And that kind of comes back to the training around being intentional with our words. And if we go out there and say things like, I'm just another person, then, other people or clients, or even in an interview, they might be like, oh, if you just think you're another writer, like I want someone that's great when you are great, right? So it's like you're training people how to think about you with our words. Like sometimes, and I know I'm guilty of this too, sometimes we really are so focused on just downplaying ourselves because we don't want to appear like we're bragging or, things. I've heard this a lot over the years. And so I'm just going to encourage, I know we're talking a lot about this, but I think it's really a mindset shift when you think about your personal brand and really just standing in it and practice it in the mirror and practice it with people who know you. And I love that you have people that have worked with you on this call, Karen, because that's the best way for people to share like, oh, actually, no, you are amazing. Did you realize how amazing you were? Because Karen, you probably were like, wow, I didn't, I know I do a good job, but maybe you just you're like, I didn't realize how amazing I was, And
no, I get it, because I look at what project managers do and I'm like, I could never do that. So I get it,
I love that. I love that you said that, right? Because I've heard the same thing from project managers. People are really good at coming into chaotic situations and organizing them. And they love that. They love like coming in, setting up the systems, keeping the trains on the track, right? And you're right, that is a total skill. Like not everyone can do that, And for many project managers, they say the same thing. They're like, well, can everybody just come in and clean up a situation? And like, no, not at all. That is a unique skill set, right? Just so I love that you made that comment, because that's probably what people that maybe writing isn't as natural to them. That's probably what they say about you is, wow, you're such a great writer. I could be that great of a writer, so it's a
Yeah.
good awareness. Like we all live in our heads, right? We're all like in our worlds, and we kind of so we forget sometimes, especially when we're working out of our strengths and things that are effortless, we forget like, oh, that's actually my brand, and how what a gift it is to be able to do the work that you love that's easy for you, because that's not the case for everybody. Some people are in jobs that are not easy for them, right? That's a big part of that awareness. If you're in a role where you're like, this is not who I am, it's not you, it's just it's probably a mismatch. So you got to get yourself out of that into a place where you can really, be in your strength. So thank you again, Karen. Thank you, Nicole. All right, who's next?
I'll go next.
All right, Scott.
Scott, love it.
So I have something I've been using for several years now, and then I also have something I developed for before we had the sizzle sheets. I just had drafted a blurb. I just wanted to try each of those and get your feedback on them,
Great.
which I had open here. There we go. So just at a high level, or not just at a high level. What I tell people is I simplify the complex, and then I go into detail, and usually it's after having asked some questions. I'm like, well, this is how I can apply this to your scenario. The other one is excellence in visual communications is my passion.
Mhm. Okay. So tell me so are you looking to clarify, like, what should your personal brand statement be, Scott, or what kind of feedback would be helpful?
Well, I think feedback on the quality of either or both of those two statements, or perhaps something else, something different, evolving that.
Okay. So tell me a little about the work right now. Like, what is the work that you want to attract? What's the work you want to do?
Really simplifying the complex.
Like
Give
project
me
management?
no. So visual design, marketing communications, solving communications problems.
Solving
So
communications problems. Okay.
somebody comes to me with something that anyone outside of themselves would not understand, and give me the opportunity to make it understood by somebody who is not that person, whether it's
Okay.
outside of their discipline, outside of their organization.
So are you looking to clarify? So is it a communications project that you're ultimately trying to get? I want to go backwards from like the work. Is that the work you want to do? Like a communications project?
So from my perspective, communications is a very, very broad umbrella.
Sure is.
So whether that's, I'm Amazon and I have a bunch of product I want to communicate to people so that they ultimately buy it.
Yes.
Well, that would be UI, UX design.
Yes.
I am, a law firm, and I need to, get people energized about expanding into new practices and whatever. Well, that's email, and that's presentations, that's communication strategy. What are you trying to do? How do you position it? Who are your competitors? Understanding that whole field, as well as the artifacts that are generated from it.
Right. So you can do it all. I'm hearing you say is you could do it all. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm like a limited pygmy unicorn.
Actually, that's kind of funny. You can put that as your brand. But so what I'm hearing you say, would you I'm trying to kind of back it in to say, like, what's the work you want? Is it kind of like a marketing communications project? Because it could be a lot of things, right? So we have an opportunity, and many people fall in this boat where you can do a lot of things. So the challenge of how do you represent yourself to the market, right? When you can do a lot, how do you clearly go out to markets? You have a couple options. You could kind of put it under a big umbrella, like I'm a marketing communications, I'm a marketing communications. I simplify the complex as a marketing communications professional consultant, however you think the right language is, right? And then you could get into your stories, and we're going to talk about in a minute. You could talk about, I solve communications problems. You know, that could be another, I heard you say that. I think that's a really interesting kind of a brand statement around solving communications problems through many, you know, through all the ways a company goes to market, or
Yeah.
all the communication vehicles, or I don't know, something about the broadness of you kind of want to hone in on what your unique skill set is, but also that you seem like I know that's about you, right? You're very adaptable. You can do a lot of different things for a client. Another term, I don't know if you like this term, that I heard a consultant who has a lot of skills in the past use about herself, was she called herself a Swiss Army knife.
Okay.
And so if you're someone that really does want to represent a lot of things, you could say like, I'm a Swiss Army knife, you know, marketing communication professional. I don't know, something
Okay.
that kind of is catchy and it makes people go, what does that mean? Then you
Yeah.
get into your stories, right? And this is the key of, I think you have probably 3 stories where you talk about, you know, like, okay, this is what I did for this client and here are the results. I mean, you kind of started saying this, right? Like, I've done this over here, I did this here in a very succinct way. And then what
Yeah.
you're showing, right, is you're showing how everyone represent, like, I simplified the complex. That's what you start with. By the way, that's great too. I think any of these could be great, Scott. It's really personal and you can kind of like
Okay.
try it out and change it up every day or every week on LinkedIn, right? Just to see what you like. But you could say, I simplified the complex. But I think it's important to add, like, what is it? What's the work
Mhm.
you want to do kind of up
Mhm.
front so people know how to
Okay.
think about simplifying the complex, right?
So each of those statements is actually the first sentence in not a long paragraph, but not, 2 sentences. Essentially so for example, if it's okay,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so let me bring this
Keep
over.
going.
So my eye line is actually matching the camera. Um, I simplify the complex. I design for people and how they use technology. I need to make a little wider. Sorry. I simplify the complex. I design for people and how they use technology to make their lives better. I consider the why as much as the how when I design, and I measure the quality of my designs by how well they connect people to the value they need. My experience spans the gamut from studying the problems and challenges people face, to ideating possible solutions, to wireframing and testing rapid prototypes, to launching, promoting, and supporting the released product. I enjoy working with everyone on a team, from DevOps/test to research to users, sponsors, and C-level stakeholders. So that was the one that backed up that.
That's okay. So that's a great summary, kind of big picture. So
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about the results you deliver for a client, like just maybe most recently or whatever jumps to your mind first. Like, give me a specific, tangible, like, this was the work I did and here's the results, you know, that the consultant or the client saw.
Um, so yeah, over in the last year, I've delivered over 122 presentations for Microsoft that they use to get in front of customers to represent over $200 million worth of security portfolio.
Just to be clear, when you said 122 presentations, did you create those presentations? What was your role?
So my role is, so getting a little bit into the weeds here,
Yeah.
we have subject matter experts, we have product owners. They will either generate or cobble together slides, information that they like, and it comes to me, and then it's kind of like somebody mixed up a deck of cards,
Yeah.
and like, what's the story here? And so
Yeah.
then I organize it. So it's both the storytelling, it's
Mhm.
the making sure that it is aligned with Microsoft's and
Mhm.
MCS's and the security and identity cybersecurity
Mhm.
brand. So
Yep.
3 tiers of branding there.
Yep.
Everything from the visuals to the tone of voice, compliance with language, business liability risks, that sort of thing. So I'm taking their raw materials,
Mhm.
making sure there's a story there. If there isn't a story, I make it a story.
Yeah.
It's got a clear beginning. Here's the business challenge.
Yeah.
Here's, what you need to know, and here's the ask,
Yeah.
next steps. Um, And
You're a
then,
storyteller. Yeah, you're a storyteller,
Yeah.
Scott.
okay,
I mean, do you like that word?
I do, but it also feels, in my experience, in both networking with other people, looking for resources, and representing myself, that since that word has emerged in the probably last dozen years,
Yeah,
it's become somewhat vague, almost as much as like saying I'm a communications professional.
that's it. And that's why we're doing this, because
Okay.
because what I'm hearing you say is like what you just described, and this is so great, everyone's hearing this, is what you just described is simplifying the complex, back to your original brand statement, right? Because I really think that's who you are. So what if you said something like, I simplify the complex as a storyteller, or through storytelling
Okay.
as a brand statement? Just play with that. I don't know if I'm wondering if storyteller is the right word for you, because you could you could say as a communications professional, you could talk about how you I kind of liked I kind of liked what you just said about, you get the scrambled deck of cards and you have to create the thread, you have to create the meaning, balancing the corporate response, kind of the corporate branding, and you're responsible for storytelling and look and feel. So to me, storytelling, you're right, it's this big term that can mean a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And this is why I love that you just went through, got in the weeds of the story, because for everyone to really see, once you said your story, now I go, oh, I get how you define storytelling, right? And that was a great example of how you simplified the complex. So you're delivering on your brand statement. I simplify the complex as a storyteller. Again, if you like that. But I'm guessing you probably have several examples, right? You could probably come up with 3. That was a great story of like, okay, here's how I did it through 122 presentations. I get all this information. I have to be the one to create the story, the narrative, look and feel, corporate. I've got to balance all these things and I've got to make it land. I mean, that's like storytelling at volume, right? Like that's what I heard you say. And that's a very specific kind of a project. And I'm guessing, Scott, you probably have other things you've done that aren't exactly that, but also storytelling probably through other ways.
Yeah, my previous client was the Worldwide Communities Learning Portal. And so they had a place inside Microsoft online that they could go to and get the resources that they needed. But it wasn't working for them. And they also had to migrate it to SharePoint Online. So I inherited the work that had been started, but was stalled out. I mean, when I was an FTE at Microsoft, I had actually started on the work and then they killed the project. So then the client, once they saw I was out of Microsoft, hired me to come finish the project that IT had killed. So I took what they had started and used that as a reference. And then I worked with stakeholders, all the things from user experience. So ethnography, sitting down and like, what are you trying to do? How are you doing it? What's important to you? What's noise? Drafting requirements, creating wireframes, creating high fidelity prototypes, working with the stakeholders, but also pitching. Once we got to a point where we were ready to share, pitching it to their leadership and say, your investment is paying off. We are making progress.
I have another idea for you, Scott. So I think this is back to, there's a lot of ways you can represent yourself and there's no one right way. Okay. This comes down to what feels most authentic to you. And this goes for everybody. So you could also just use your original simplify the complex as kind of a generic headline. It makes you go, okay, like when I hear that, I think, okay, what does that really mean? Which then you could go into storytelling, UX, UI, and maybe communication or whatever. Like you could almost do your 3, because you kind of probably have 3, I'm guessing, kind of core capabilities that bubble up to simplifying the complex, that are 3 really distinct stories, because you could really go from a project perspective, right? You could go in those 3 different ways. Is that, what do you think about something like that?
I think that's very helpful.
Yeah. And you could even say like simplify the complex through storytelling, UX, UI design. And like, I'm curious, or maybe that's enough, but is there another capability that you talk about a lot that you deliver?
Yeah, I mean, so given my background, having worked in a variety of companies, many of them startups, you're often expected to wear more than one hat. And so I've done usability research, I've done usability testing and engineering. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I was networking with a friend this morning and explaining what I do. You know, I've been involved in gathering, analytics, whether it's drafting and running a survey or, looking at data. The thing is like you talk about the work you want to do. I appreciate analytics, so data, but I'm not an analyst. I don't
Mhm.
swim in that. I'm not going to immerse myself in it and be that person who is, that's their whole world. To me, it's a tool. And
Yes.
so, and I think this also goes back to other aspects, again, around the communication, is I ask questions and I follow up and I gain knowledge from that. And then I process it and I translate it to somebody else.
Yeah.
My first startup was I was a person willing to go down to the developer pen and ask the awkward questions and listen to them speak in their language and then go back to the art department, the marketing department and leadership and tell them in a manner that makes sense to them
Mhm.
what's possible. And I'm the
Thank you.
design guy stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
So,
That's a great, and okay, this is a really important point. When you can translate, we call that translating from like engineering to marketing. If anyone has this experience, that's a really unique skill set, being able to be that translator. So that might be part of your, so you're bringing up a lot. Okay, you got to the question that I was actually going to ask you, which I bet other people might have too, which is you've done so much, Scott. You have so many different skill sets and experiences. So when you think about the next project you want or job, are you more excited about doing something around, kind of leaning into one area, or are you like, you know what, I'm really open and I could do anything?
I'm really open.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed what I've been doing for this last project.
Okay.
A lot of PowerPoint. I mean, if you were to talk to the college graduate or the first couple of jobs out of the .coms and say, you're going to really enjoy, you're going to be using PowerPoint every day for hours a day, and you're going to generate over 1,200 PowerPoints over the course of a project, I would have thought you were crazy. But at the same time, when I was in high school, I wanted to be a war correspondent and travel the world taking photographs, and I ended up working in Photoshop and loving it.
There you go.
Um,
It's the tool. It's like
so
mastering the
yeah,
tool, right?
yeah,
Of what you're really excited about. Actually, there might be an analogy there if the war correspondent to work, working in tech. I'm not sure, but you can think about
well,
that.
yeah, it is. I see that. I see that.
Right?
And
It's kind of,
but at the same time, I think the point I was trying to make was I never thought I would do what I had been doing and enjoy it as much as I have
I love
if I
that.
hadn't been open.
Yeah.
And so I was working for Maria Howie,
Yes.
and I was over in Worldwide Communities, and I've been hired as a UX designer, and
Yeah.
I did that stuff. But because I had picked up some skills in PowerPoint, which is ironic because there's more skills than what most people have. I was able to communicate that, and so then Maria's like, "Hey, I remember from your LinkedIn or from your resume, you worked in identity management over in IT. And so
Yeah.
you're familiar with these concepts. Could you do PowerPoint? Could you help us with that?" And that turned into a long-term project. And,
Exactly. So,
if I had siloed myself to
right.
saying, no, I'm just a UX guy, I'm just
Right.
a wireframer, you know,
Yeah, you would have missed out on that opportunity. You're right. That's a big part of this personal brand work is being open okay, well, first of all, you want to be clear on who you are and motivates you. And that's kind of this work. And what I'm hearing you say, Scott, is you are open, but you have a lot of really unique experiences. And I also heard you say you really love this last project you did. So what you might want to do is, like you're already starting to tell us the elements of that. I would emphasize that if you want to do that kind of work, and knowing what the market is, there definitely that work is out there, right? So I think emphasize the work that you want. Don't necessarily down, I mean, you can also add on the other things you can do, but just be intentional so that when you're talking to people, they get it. You know, people have very short attention spans, right? When you're out there looking for work and they're like, what do you want to do? They just want it. And so if you kind of go through everything, they're like, I don't know how to think about you, and they're on to the next. And that's not what you want, right? So part of personal brand is like, okay, this is what I've done recently. I really love this. And, you know, kind of, I have these core capabilities. So I kind of like for you, maybe thinking about these core capabilities and saying like, I really did this, you know, the storytelling with PowerPoint and however you want to represent that work, right? I really love that work. I'd love to do more of that work. And it also, you know, and I've also done the user experience and either usability or business analytics. Like you can still talk about those things like on your LinkedIn profile, have them there, but maybe have the work you want to do a little more prominent with those stories. And then people will look at you and they'll see your picture, but they'll also go, oh, okay, I know how to think about you a little bit more specifically, you know, for the work.
It's like news writing. You start with the most important need to know, because you're going to lose people after like paragraph 3, paragraph 4.
Exactly.
It's the diehards that get down to the very bottom and like, oh yeah, you are familiar with Unix or something like that.
Right. You just see a bunch of words. Yeah. And Cindy, I know we're gonna go to Nicole next, right?
Yeah, and we have about 9 minutes left, everybody.
Okay, good. Now this is great. And hopefully everyone's hearing. Scott, thank you so much for sharing so much. And I'm happy to talk to you as you're refining even further, because I think it really is. The one thing I'll say as we're talking, especially about your LinkedIn profile, is make sure it's not just a bunch of words, right? I think a lot of people just kind of copy and paste their resume. And really what you want to do is tell your story and really showcase like whatever your headline is, even if you just keep it, you know, simplify the complex and just very generic, like you could do that. But then right when they look at your experience, have it very clear, like storytelling, boom, these are the results. User experience, boom, right? And so in like literally 5 seconds, someone can scan that and go, oh, this guy's an expert in this and that, you know, so you're just making it easy for people to really see the results you've delivered through that work. And then it bubbles up to your brand statement. I mean, the other thing I might encourage you is back to what we talked about, simplify the complex with storytelling, user experience, whatever, maybe put a few of those words at the headline, because that'll grab people's attention if that's what they're looking for. And then you're going to elaborate on the results, right? Is that helpful?
Thank you very much. Okay. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Scott. That's great. Okay. Was it Nicole next, Cindy, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping, hi. Thank you for this. I'm hoping that I have just a quick question. Are there any terms or phrases that you don't advise we use, like softer terms that may just be like mush and not worth anything, like curious, that may make people feel like you're just going to slow the works down if you ask too many questions, or humanizing. I mean, I like to do that, but I think it's been received with kind of this, oh, she's a big talker, or she's never going to get anything done, or whatever. Are there a couple of phrases that we should avoid?
Okay, it's a great question. So I think any word is fine as long as you can back it up with results. So the most important thing, if you said, let's just use some of those examples, let's talk them through. Humanizing, like I'm all about the human experience. Then I would encourage you to think about a story. And if you have one, we can talk about this, Nicole, like tell me a story about how you've delivered humanizing in the work that you've done, and what was the result or the impact to your client or the business. Oh, you're on mute, sorry.
You're asking me that question.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. You feel
I think it's about writing about someone who solved a problem with customer service, and why they're in customer service, and what drove them to kind of stick with this person, and how they remembered something that happened earlier in their life or their career that kind of reminded them of or inspired them to solve this issue. So, just to kind of sit, not just have people be these employees or, what have you. They were more people who were putting it together. who are making things, who were solving these problems and who called upon their own experience and not just cogs in the wheel.
And so were you telling the story about this? Is that right?
Yeah, well, I included it in, there was a story about solving a problem, and I included something about their background in the story. And it survived the edit, which was a small miracle. But I always feel like sometimes those things aren't as valued in this
Yeah.
ever-moving, ever-changing corporate arenas.
It depends on the client and the work that you're applying to. Like if you're applying somewhere, that actually the human story is important, then they're going to care about that. I mean, another way to think about it is you could go look at synonyms for like humanizing, or what was the other word you shared, Nicole?
To be curious.
Curious. That's another one. Like, I love that word. I'm curious to hear your story around how you show curiosity. And what you could do is either build out a story with results, or look at synonyms for curious, and kind of think about, is there something else that is even stronger,
Or worse, like challenging.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so whatever, it's not, I mean, I don't want you to feel like it's right or a good or a bad word. There's no really good or bad words. I think it's the way that you show up. And so tell me a little bit about the work. So the work you're doing right now, it's writing, is that right? Communications?
Yes.
Okay. So the work you want is communications, like a communications project. Is that how you represent it? Okay.
Yeah.
And then just tell me, like, why, tell me, Nicole, if you don't mind me asking, why are you what is it that motivates you about being a communications professional?
I'm trying to humanize the corporate arena. I'm trying to, show the people behind all these numbers and coding and all that stuff.
Love it.
Give people a moment, because the company is so huge. I'm at Microsoft. They want to know each other, and they're spread all over the globe. And I think if we find the human in each of us, that'll make us more successful together. We feel more of a team, that we know each other better. But that feels so mushy, that feels like Girl Scout camp,
I love that you just said that, because what I was just going to say to you was, gosh, I felt so authentic when you were starting out. You're like, did you guys hear that? She's so like, yeah, it's just this, I want to humanize. This is what I do. This is who I am. Right. And then you immediately were like, this feels too fluffy. Right. And I know I run to that too. So here's my thought back to, so Microsoft, let's use Microsoft as a great example. Look at Microsoft's mission. It's to help everyone realize their potential. You could say that's soft and squishy, right? So I think in some ways you're looking for clients who value the human experience. And I would absolutely venture to say there's probably a lot of them at Microsoft that absolutely want to tell the human story. So they would not, and I think that's a differentiator, because that is really what I'm hearing you say, Nicole, you're super passionate about that through your work, right? Mm-hmm. You could do writing, but to do writing, retelling the human story is really powerful for you. So I actually think that's a huge differentiator for you, and for you to be able to share some stories like you just did of what that means. What does the human experience mean, and how you've been able to show the results in the business. Actually, I think that completely differentiates you in the landscape of communication professionals, for not for all work, but for work, really the work that you want, right? And the kind of the those clients that really are trying to tell the human experience.
Right. 1 minute.
Yeah, 2 minutes. I know, 2-minute warning.
Okay. So people want this encore, so we can do this as an encore for take 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Is that helpful, Nicole?
Wonderful as always, Lisa. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you for the work you do. Well, we'll wrap it up. And if anyone has any questions afterwards, you know where to reach me. I'm just at Lisa at Simplicity. So I'm happy to talk to you if you're kind of stuck. But what I really hope each of you were able to come out of this today and hear from other people, even if like just a little more clarity, and maybe you had an aha moment, that would be amazing, around how you really want to go out there and represent yourself and be confident. And I'm just going to leave you this last thing. Really take it down to your stories. What you've heard in the conversations with the consultants here is it's really about your stories that people want to know. What are the results you've delivered? And the more you can really hone those and have a few of them, that helps build your confidence to go out there and really say, this is what I do. This is how I've done it. And I can do it for you too. And then it's a matter of just finding that client that really needs what you have, because it is out there for you. So thank you guys so much for your participation, and look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye, guys.
See you all soon. We'll schedule more time. Appreciate you all. Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks.